They say his eyes could pierce straight through you, even across the deck of a rolling ship. That his beard, black as midnight, was braided with slow burning fuses, the smoke curling around his head like a crown of fire. Sailors swore that if you met his gaze in battle, you would not see the face of a man, but the shadow of the devil himself. His name was Edward Teach, or Thatch, depending on which faded, sea-stained document you believe, though the world would remember him by another name, a name that outlived empires, survived the fall of kings, and became a byword for terror upon the sea: Blackbeard. His reign as a pirate lasted barely 2 years, but in those 2 years, he wrote a legend that would never die. Behind the roar of cannon fire, the capture of ships, and the cries of the vanquished, there is a whisper, a story of hidden gold, a curse that guards it, and the men who vanished trying to claim it. Before the man became the monster, there was a boy. Edward was likely born around 1680 in the bustling port city of Bristol, England. Bristol in those days was a place of sails and smoke, where the tang of salt mingled with the reek of tar. Ships from Africa, the Caribbean, and the American colonies filled the harbor. Tall masts clawed at the sky like skeletal fingers, and the streets were alive with sailors shouting in a dozen languages. Bristol was a gateway to fortune, and to ruin. A boy growing up there could learn quickly that the sea offered both. Little is known of Edward's parents, but if they were like most in Bristol, they lived hard lives. For a boy with ambition, the narrow alleys and crowded docks offered only one way out: go to sea. Edward likely started as a ship's boy, learning to haul lines, coil rope, and climb rigging in storms that could tear a mast from its base. The work was brutal, but the sea had a way of forging men. Somewhere along the way, Edward found himself aboard a privateer. A privateer was piracy in all but name, a ship armed with cannon and men, carrying a legal document called a letter of marque, giving it permission to plunder enemy vessels during wartime. For England, that meant attacking the Spanish and French. It was dangerous work. Cannonballs smashed through wood and bone alike. Musket fire turned decks into killing grounds, and storms could send entire crews to the bottom. But it paid better than honest trade, and more importantly, it gave Edward something else: a taste for power and for plunder. During the War of the Spanish Succession, Edward served in the West Indies. He learned navigation, the art of maneuvering a ship into the wind, and the deadly geometry of broadside cannon fire. He learned how to board an enemy vessel, cutlass in hand, and how to intimidate a foe into surrender without spilling blood. Most of all, he learned that a man who mastered fear, both his own and his enemies, could master the sea. When the war ended in 1714, privateers like Edward were cut adrift. Many returned to England. Others turned pirate. The Caribbean was ripe for it. Treasure fleets still carried gold from the New World to Spain, France's colonies were rich with sugar, and England's navy was spread thin. For a man with skill, nerve, and no fear of the noose, it was the perfect time to strike. By 1716, Edward had joined forces with one of the most cunning pirates of the day, Benjamin Hornigold. Hornigold saw potential in the tall, broad-shouldered sailor from Bristol. Under his command, Edward learned the finer points of piracy, not just how to take a ship, but how to take it without a fight. A pirate's reputation could be as lethal as his cannon. If a captain believed you were ruthless enough, he might surrender rather than face you. Hornigold eventually gave Edward his own command, a small sloop, fast and agile. But Edward wanted more. His chance came in late 1717, when he captured a massive French slave ship called La Concorde. He refitted her for war, mounting 40 cannons, and renamed her the Queen Anne's Revenge. Now he had a floating fortress. It was around this time that Edward Teach became Blackbeard. He grew out his beard until it covered most of his chest, and began weaving slow-burning fuses into it, lighting them before battle so that smoke curled around his face. He strapped multiple pistols across his chest and carried a cutlass that seemed almost an extension of his arm. The image worked. Ships that might have fought chose instead to surrender. Merchants whispered his name with dread, and his fame spread across the Atlantic. In May 1718, Blackbeard committed one of the boldest acts in pirate history, the blockade of Charleston, South Carolina. For nearly a week, his fleet controlled the harbor, stopping every ship that tried to enter or leave. He took prisoners, including some of Charleston's most prominent citizens, and demanded a chest of medicine as ransom. The city complied. Blackbeard released his captives and sailed away without killing a single one. To Charleston, it was a miracle. To his crew, it was puzzling. Why ransom for medicine instead of gold? Some whispered that the medicine was a cover, and that while Charleston panicked, the most valuable cargo from captured ships was quietly moved to a secure place. One only Blackbeard knew. Again and again, after major raids, the same pattern emerged. Blackbeard would vanish for weeks, sometimes months, before returning with less loot than expected. His crew grumbled, but none dared challenge him openly. Theories spread. Some said he buried treasure along the Carolina coast. Others believed he sank it in barrels in shallow coves, marking the spots with strange symbols carved into trees. And again, the name Ocracoke Island surfaced. Ocracoke was one of his favorite hideouts, a crescent of sand and marsh where a ship could disappear from sight in minutes. One night, according to local legend, lantern lights were seen moving along the beach. Several chests were carried ashore from the Queen Anne's Revenge. By morning, the men who carried them were gone. Some say Blackbeard killed them to protect the secret. Others believe they ran and were hunted down. No bodies were ever found. The chests never seen again. But Blackbeard's life was not all victories. In June 1718, he ran the Queen Anne's Revenge aground near Beaufort Inlet, along with another of his ships. Some believe it was an accident. Others think it was deliberate, a way to downsize his crew, keep the best loot for himself, and slip away with a handful of trusted men. Whatever the truth, he accepted a royal pardon from Governor Charles Eden of North Carolina, and briefly lived as a respectable man in the town of Bath. But the quiet life didn't last. Within months, he was back at sea, raiding ships and hiding spoils. His end came on November 22, 1718. The Royal Navy had had enough. Lieutenant Robert Maynard was sent to hunt him down. The battle off Ocracoke was short, brutal, and legendary. Blackbeard fought like a man possessed, taking 5 musket balls and more than 20 sword cuts before falling. His head was severed and hung from Maynard's bowsprit as proof of victory. His body was thrown into the sea. Some say it swam around the ship before sinking. And yet, in the days before that battle, he had again been seen moving cargo ashore with a small group of men. None of that cargo was ever recovered. Over the centuries, treasure hunters have searched the Carolina coast for Blackbeard's gold. Most found nothing. Some met with misfortune. In 1936, a diver exploring wreckage near Beaufort Inlet drowned mysteriously. His partner claimed he'd seen a figure in the murk with smoke curling from its head. In the 1970s, 2 men vanished while searching marshland near Pamlico Sound. Their boat was found adrift, engine running, no sign of them. The closest we've come lies in the wreck of the Queen Anne's Revenge, discovered in 1996. Thousands of artifacts have been recovered, cannons, tools, even tiny flecks of gold, but no treasure chests. Some believe he moved the gold before the ship was grounded. If he wrote down the locations, the map died with him. Whether the treasure is real or not, the legend is powerful. It draws divers to the deep, explorers to the marshes, and dreamers to Ocracoke's shores. And maybe that's the real treasure, a story so strong it's chased for centuries. But if you walk those beaches at night and see a lantern's glow on the dunes, or dive the wreck and see smoke curling where no smoke should be, remember, some legends are more than stories, and some treasures are not meant to be found.